Is Elden Ring fair? I think I found the answer to that question, and I think it not only applies to Elden Ring, but other Souls-likes as well, and it's the reason they're even fun to play in the first place. Now, let's get one thing out of the way. This game is absolutely incredible. I mean, honestly, it's hard to believe a game this good is real, and it might even be the best open world game I've ever played. The combat is equally incredible, the customization is brilliant, and with such a vast array of options available to you, it's almost impossible not to find something that fits your playstyle. I really do mean it when I say that I love this game. It's genuinely fantastic, and I've never played anything like it. With all that said, let's talk about whether or not it's fair by first defining what makes a video game fair. Fairness is defined as in accordance with the rules or standards, which may be the single most useless definition I've ever read, but let's try to make sense of it in the context of games. In basketball, traveling is unfair. You have to dribble the ball when you move because the rules say so. But what if an old man had to play against Shaq in his prime? I mean, as long as Shaq dribbled the ball and didn't step out of bounds or anything, he's technically not cheating, right? By definition, this is a totally fair game. However, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone who'd agree with that. The other issue when it comes to fairness is the medium we're looking at. Most video games have the same general rule. You run out of health, you lose. You take away all of your enemies' health and you win. But it's far more nuanced than that, as in every game you've got smaller, unique rules. For example, attacking in Zelda doesn't cost any stamina, but it does in Dark Souls. So it's inherently kinda hard to measure the fairness of a single game. With all that in mind, we'll need a few rules to define fairness in Elden Ring. Number 1, the rules must be consistent. Whatever the rules are, they have to be the same across the board. For example, if losing all of your health results in failure, that has to be the rule in every single fight. If enemies are supposed to have stamina or limits to their attacks, that must always be the case. And rule number 2 is with knowledge, every single attack in the game should be avoidable. This isn't just a rule I use for Elden Ring. I think in any game where getting attacked too many times results in failure, every attack must be avoidable. There may be some exceptions to this rule. For example, if your health is deliberately lowered to a certain threshold for one part of the fight, that may be fine, but I'd have to look into that. However, in the context of Elden Ring, I think we can all agree that unavoidable attacks are not fair. So according to these rules, is Elden Ring fair? Well, speaking strictly from a gameplay perspective, yes. Every enemy in this game that I've fought has limits. They all have stamina and they can't just attack endlessly. They all have cooldowns on their attacks, and I'd imagine if I were good enough, which I'm definitely not, I could beat this game without getting hit. Every single encounter is determined by who loses all of their health first, so the rules are consistent. So with knowledge you can dodge everything, the rules are consistent, and as a result the game is fair. However, please take this with not just a grain of salt, but maybe the entire Pacific Ocean. Here's why. I am not a FromSoft expert, nor am I a FromSoft veteran, or a game designer. With enough research and time, I'm sure I could give you a very concrete answer on whether or not I think Elden Ring's gameplay is fair. However, with the relatively small amount of time I have in the series, I feel like it would be a bit dishonest to make such a substantial claim about the gameplay of a series that I know so little about. But from what I've played, the game seems totally fair. There's nothing— Oh yeah, the secret. Not sure what's so secret about it, but whatever. So generally, we define fairness in life as a situation in which both parties have an equal chance at victory. Of course, this can stretch a bit when it comes to natural gifts like being able to run super fast. No one's calling Usain Bolt a cheater, but I think even he knows he's got a bit of an unfair advantage genetically speaking. So with this third rule, Elden Ring actually becomes wildly unfair. But not in the way you might think. Remember that analogy from earlier with Shaq dunking on the old man? That's basically the entirety of Elden Ring. You're roughly this big and the bosses are about this big. And the ones that aren't bigger than you are stronger than you, or faster than you, or intangible. Really? Was that necessary? The difference in natural abilities between you and your opponents in this game is almost always overwhelming, and on the rare occasions that they're not twice as fast and strong as you are, they're doing things like this. One enemy alone would have technically been fair, but with all of these enemies together, the odds are no longer equal for both parties. the enemy has a clear advantage. And that's what this is all about. The overwhelming advantage that one party has over the other is just not fair. And that's why I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that Elden Ring is unfair. Okay, so I'm not going back on what I just said. This game is unfair, but the odds are actually stacked heavily in your favor, because you can learn. Enemies cannot. You can upgrade your weapons, you can change your approach, you can phone a friend if you have any. This point is best summed up in one single sentence. If an enemy beats me 1,000 times, I can keep trying. But if I beat them once, it's over. And that's what I think makes this game and games like it so much fun. It's not supposed to be fair. If you couldn't respawn infinitely, these games wouldn't be fun because it would be almost impossible to learn and improve. If the enemies weren't naturally stronger than you, they wouldn't be satisfying to overcome. This game and games like it have to be unfair because that's what makes them special. You can go into a fight you're not supposed to win with the odds totally stacked against you, and yet you'll prevail anyway, because the game isn't fair. But there is one thing that I mentioned earlier in this video. Elden Ring might be the best open world game I've ever played, and I plan to make a video on that in the near future, so subscribe to make sure you don't miss it. And check out these videos for what gives games their purpose and what ruins Elden Ring for newer players.